In the heart of the valley of verdant dreams, where the rivers chuckled over smooth stones and the mountains wore crowns of perpetually misted ancient pines, lay the village of Oakhaven. It was a place woven from quiet contentment, its houses built of warm, honey-colored wood, their roofs moss-kissed, and their windows always seeming to glow with the promise of hearth and home. Children with rosy cheeks chased fireflies through meadows speckled with moon-petal flowers, and the scent of baking bread mingled with the earthy fragrance of the surrounding forest. This forest was not just any forest. It was the Whisper Wood. For most of Oakhaven's folk, the Whisper Wood was simply the boundary of their gentle world. Its trees, some older than memory, stood sentinel, their branches thick with leaves that hummed in the breeze. They provided timber for homes, berries for pies, and a pleasant rustling backdrop to their daily lives. But for Elara, a girl with eyes the color of twilight and hair like spun moonlight, the Whisperwood was something far more. It spoke. Elara had heard the whispers ever since she could remember. Not with her ears. Not truly. Though the wind carried sounds that others might mistake for mere rustling leaves. No, Elara heard them in the quietest chambers of her mind, a soft, insistent murmur that felt like a secret breath against her soul. They were gentle at first, like the lullaby of distant waves, a comforting hum that often lulled her to sleep on warm summer nights. Sometimes the whispers carried stories, fragments of forgotten tales, like sun-dappled glimpses of ancient times. She'd hear about the star weavers who spun the first constellations, or the river sprites who taught the fish to dance, or the great earth giants whose snores once rumbled through the mountains, shaping valleys and raising peaks. These weren't the stories her grandmother Lyra told by the fire, full of heroes and clear morals. These were wilder, more ephemeral, like dreams half remembered upon waking. They had no beginning, no end, just a shimmering middle. Elara was a solitary child, not because she disliked company, but because her inner world was so vast and vibrant. While other children played games of tag or built miniature forts by the creek, Elara would often sit on the old swing beneath the great oak in her yard, her bare feet tracing patterns in the dust, her gaze lost in the swaying canopy of the Whisperwood. She'd tilt her head, listening not to the chirping crickets or the distant calls of her friends, but to the gentle chorus of the trees. Her grandmother Lyra, a woman with a smile as warm as baked apples and eyes that held the wisdom of many seasons, understood Elara better than anyone. Lyra was old, her hands gnawed like ancient roots, but her mind was as keen as a spring breeze. She never dismissed Elara's talk of the whispers, though she never quite confirmed them either. Instead, she would simply nod, her gaze far away, and then tell Elara to listen closely. Little Starspark, the world has many voices and not all of them are for shouting. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves of the Whisperwood began to turn riotous shades of crimson and gold, Elara felt a subtle shift in the whispers. They were no longer just a background hum. A new note had entered the symphony, like a single, clear bell chiming amidst a choir of rustling silk. It was a feeling more than a sound, a faint pull, a gentle curiosity that tugged at the edges of her awareness. She was helping grandmother Lyra gather fallen apples from their small orchard, their baskets filling with ruby-red fruit. The air was sweet and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. "Grandmother," Elara said, plucking a particularly rosy apple, "do you ever feel like the trees are trying to tell you something specific?" Lyra straightened, her back creaking softly. She held an apple in her hand, turning it slowly. "Specific, you say, little Starspark? The trees always tell us things. When to plant, when to harvest, when the rains will come. They tell us of time and patience and the turning of the seasons." "No, not like that," Elara insisted, trying to articulate the ineffable. "More like a secret. A story that's just begun, and it's waiting for someone to listen to the next part." Lyra's eyes, usually twinkling with merriment, held a thoughtful, almost solemn expression. She looked towards the Whisperwood, its vibrant autumn cloak a stark contrast to its ancient shadowed depths. "The Whisperwood holds many secrets, Elara. Secrets older than Oakhaven, older than the mountains themselves. Some secrets are meant to be kept, like seeds in the dark earth, waiting for their time to sprout. Others yearn to be heard." That day, the new note in the whispers grew stronger. It wasn't urgent, not yet, but it was distinct. It felt like a path, a direction. It seemed to emanate from deeper within the whisper wood than Elara usually dared to venture. The villagers of Oakhaven had an unspoken understanding about the whisper wood. One went in for wood, for berries, for a pleasant walk along its well-worn paths. But one did not venture deep, not without a reason, and certainly not without a guide. Tales of getting lost, of strange lights and disorienting fogs, were enough to keep most folk on the fringes. But Elara, guided by the insistent, gentle tug of the whispers, found her feet straying further and further. One afternoon, while searching for particularly sweet wild blueberries, she followed a faint deer trail she'd never noticed before. The trees grew thicker here, their branches intertwining overhead to form a natural cathedral, filtering the sunlight into dappled gold coins on the forest floor. The air grew cooler, quieter, save for the soft rustle of leaves and the growing intensity of the whispers. Here, the whispers were different. They weren't fragmented stories anymore. They were more like feelings, sensations. A profound sense of age, of patience, of something vast and sleeping. And then a single recurring image began to form in her mind's eye, clearer than any whisper story she'd heard before, a shimmering silvery leaf, unlike any she knew. It glowed with an inner light, and when she focused on it, she felt a distinct pull, a warm, inviting sensation. She came upon a clearing she'd never seen. It was circular, bathed in an ethereal, soft green light that seemed to emanate from the very moss that carpeted the ground. In the center stood a single tree, taller and wider than any other in the whisper wood. Its bark was a deep charcoal gray, ridged and ancient, almost like petrified waves. Its leaves, even in autumn, were a vibrant, impossible emerald green, and they seemed to hum with an inner energy. This was no ordinary tree. And nestled amongst its lowest branches, just within reach, was a cluster of leaves, identical to the shimmering, silvery one she had envisioned. They pulsed with a gentle, milky light, casting soft shadows that danced on the moss. Elara felt a gasp catch in her throat, though no sound escaped. The whispers here were a roaring chorus, yet they were not loud. They were simply presenting, overwhelming her senses with their depth and clarity. They spoke of eye-homing, of memory, of awakening. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers brushing against one of the silvery leaves. It felt cool, smooth, like polished moonlight. A jolt, not unpleasant, but profound, ran through her arm and into her chest. It was as if the leaf itself hummed against her skin, a deeper, more resonant vibration than anything she had ever felt. As her fingers closed around the leaf, the whispers coalesced into a single, clear thought, not spoken in words, but perfectly understood. And she is here. The listener has come. Wow. What's she? Elara pulled the leaf gently from the branch. It detached with surprising ease, leaving no tear, no wound on the ancient tree. As she held it, the silvery light intensified, casting a soft glow on her face. The clearing, the forest, everything around her seemed to hold its breath. Then, just as quickly as it had intensified, the light from the leaf softened, becoming a gentle, steady pulse. The whispers, too, subsided into their familiar, comforting hum, but now they carried a new, underlying melody of anticipation. Elara tucked the leaf carefully into the pocket of her apron, feeling its warmth through the fabric. She knew with uncertainty that settled deep in her bones that this was not just a leaf. And the whispers were not just old stories. They were a call. Returning to Oakhaven, the world seemed both the same and utterly transformed. The familiar paths felt subtly different. The air tasted sharper. The colors of the sunset were more vivid. She kept the silvery leaf her secret, holding it close to her heart, both literally and figuratively. That evening, as grandmother Lyra braided Elara's moonlight hair by the firelight, Elara found herself unable to speak of the clearing, of the ancient tree, or of the silvery leaf. It felt too sacred, too fragile to be put into words. "Did you find those blueberries, little star spark?" Lyra asked, her fingers deft and gentle. "Yes, grandmother," Elara murmured, her gaze drawn to the dancing flames. "And something else." Lyra paused in her braiding, her hands resting on Elara's shoulders. She looked at Elara's reflection in the window, then into her eyes. "Something precious, I imagine." It wasn't a question. Elara nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. Yes, something precious. Lyra resumed braiding, her movements slow and deliberate. The Whisperwood shares its treasures with those who listen with their hearts, Lyra, but not all treasures are gold or jewels. Some are knowledge, some are responsibility. She sighed softly. And some are the beginning of a long journey. Over the next few days, the whispers took on a new quality. They were no longer just a general hum. Now they were focused, almost like a gentle current guiding a boat. The silvery leaf, which Elara kept hidden beneath her pillow, seemed to resonate with them. At night, she would hold it, and the whispers would weave intricate patterns in her mind, showing her fleeting glimpses of places she'd never seen, crumbling ruins overgrown with luminous vines, hidden streams that flowed with liquid starlight, and creatures of impossible grace and light. She began to spend more and more time at the edge of the Whisperwood, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. The whispers were no longer just calling her, they were teaching her. She learned to distinguish the rustle of a squirrel from the flutter of a fairy's wing, the scent of damp earth from the unique fragrance of a hidden spring. The forest, once merely beautiful, now felt alive in a way she had never fully comprehended. Every leaf, every stone, every shaft of sunlight held a story, a purpose. One afternoon, while tracing the familiar path that led to the clearing of the ancient tree, Elara noticed something new. The whispers were more urgent, a faster current. They carried a faint unsettling tremor, like a distant ripple on a perfectly still pond. It was a feeling of unease, a subtle disharmony in the forest's usual symphony. When she reached the clearing, the emerald leaves of the ancient tree were still vibrant. The moss still glowed with its soft green light. But something was different. The air was colder here, and the usual chorus of whispers was muted, almost hesitant. And then she saw it. Nestled at the base of the ancient tree, where its gnarled roots rose like the back of a sleeping beast, was a patch of ground where the moss was not glowing. It was dull, gray, almost shriveled. And one of the ancient tree's lowest branches, usually vibrant with emerald leaves, had a single silvery leaf that was now dim, its light faded, almost dark. A wave of profound sadness washed over Elara, not just her own, but a feeling that resonated from the very tree itself, from the whispers that now carried a note of quiet sorrow. The tree, the Whisperwood, was hurting. As she knelt beside the affected patch of moss, the whispers grew clearer, more focused than ever before. They weren't speaking in stories now, but in a language of urgent images and feelings. She saw shadows creeping, heard a distant mournful sigh carried on an unseen wind. She felt a deep, slow drain, a fading of light and light. The silvery leaf in her pocket throbbed with a gentle warmth, as if echoing the tree's pain, yet also offering a silent promise. The whispers coalesced, forming a clear, undeniable directive. They showed her a path, deeper into the Whisperwood, towards a place she had only glimpsed in her nightly visions. A place where the streams flowed with liquid starlight. A place where the shadows began. Elara looked from the fading moss to the ancient tree, then to the path that beckoned. The fear that usually kept Oakhaven's folk from venturing deep into the Whisperwood was there, a cold knot in her stomach. But stronger than the fear was the pull of the whispers, the profound connection she felt to this ancient suffering place. And an even stronger feeling, a sense of purpose. The whispers were not just telling her a story anymore. They were asking her to be a part of it. They were asking for her help. With a deep breath, Elara clutched the silvery leaf in her pocket, its warmth a small beacon against the chill that now permeated the air. She turned towards the path, the one the whispers were showing her, the one that led deeper into the heart of the ancient magical Whisperwood. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, but Elara did not look back. The Whisperwood was calling, and she, Elara, the listener, was ready to answer. The path swallowed her whole. What had been a distinct, if overgrown, track at the forest's edge quickly dissolved into a tapestry of roots and moss-covered stones, indistinguishable from the surrounding forest floor. The trees here were different. Not merely tall but ancient, their trunks wider than any house, their bark like wrinkled skin etched with the stories of forgotten millennia. Their branches heavy with dark green leaves, interwove overhead, forming a dense canopy that filtered the last vestiges of twilight into dappled emerald and indigo. The air grew cool, carrying the scent of damp earth, rich loam, and something else, something sweet and ancient, like petrified honey and moonlight. The sounds of the world outside faded, replaced by the symphony of the whisper wood itself. It wasn't just the rustle of leaves or the hoot of an owl. It was a chorus of faint, ethereal voices, a soft, constant murmur that seemed to rise from the very ground beneath her feet, vibrating through the roots of the trees and descending from the highest branches. They were clearer now, less like a distant hum, and more like a gentle, insistent song, guiding her deeper. This way, listener. Follow the breath of the slumbering heart. Elara walked, her steps light and careful, her eyes wide with wonder. Luminescent moss glowed softly along the trunks of trees, casting a faint, otherworldly light that danced with the dwindling natural illumination. Tiny, bell-shaped flowers, unseen anywhere else, pulsed with a soft internal luminescence, chiming with an inaudible melody that only the whispers seemed to understand. The silvery leaf in her pocket thrummed, a steady, comforting warmth against her skin, almost as if it were beating in time with her own heart, or perhaps with the heart of the forest itself. The whispers led her to a clearing, circular and silent, where a single tree dominated the space. It was a willow, but unlike any she had ever seen. Its branches wept not with leaves, but with long silvery tendrils that shimmered like spun moonlight, reaching down to touch the glassy surface of a small, still pool at its base. The air around it felt heavy, thick with a profound sadness that seemed to cling to her skin like morning dew. This was the weeping willow of Eldoria, a tree of legend, said to absorb the sorrows of the land. But tonight, its sorrow felt too great, too palpable. As she drew closer, the whispers grew urgent. Heart's tears. The sorrow is too deep. The balance falters. Elara noticed that the silvery tendrils of the willow, usually vibrant, were now dull. Some even brittle, their luminescence fading. The pool beneath was not reflecting the faint light of the forest. It was dark, almost stagnant. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Perched on one of the drooping tendrils, no larger than her thumb, was a tiny figure. It was a sprite, its form translucent, like a wisp of mist, with delicate gossamer wings that beat sluggishly. Its face, no bigger than a pearl, was etched with an expression of profound grief, and from its eyes, tiny, iridescent tears fell, not into the pool, but onto the wilting tendril, where they seemed to be absorbed, yet offered no relief. "Little one? One?" Elara whispered, her voice soft, unwilling to startle the fragile creature. The sprite flinched, its wings fluttering weakly, and then it turned its head, its eyes, the color of twilight, locking onto hers. A wave of sorrow, sharp and raw, washed over Elara, making her own eyes sting. It was the sprite's sorrow, a distillation of the willow's anguish, a reflection of the fading magic. "The willow, it weeps too much." The sprite's voice was a barely audible sigh, like the whisper of wind through dry grass. "It tries to heal, to draw the grief from the land, but the grief is too vast. It overwhelms. The tears, they are no longer tears of healing, but of despair. And I, Eliana, the heart's tear sprite, can do nothing but witness." Elara knelt, her heart aching for the tiny being. "Why is the grief so vast? What causes it?" Eliana trembled. "The silence, the growing silence, the songs of the earth dim, the laughter of the streams quiet, the whispers fade. As the magic recedes, so too does hope, and despair takes root. The willow, it is like a filter for the land's emotions. When the land grows sick, the willow sickens too." Elara remembered the whisper's message. Follow the breath of the slumbering heart. It was a heart, a sensitive one, and it was struggling. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, her gaze sweeping over the fading tendrils. Eliana shook her tiny head. "Well, only if the source of the silence is found, only if the magic is rekindled. Until then, we weep." Elara reached into her pocket and pulled out the silvery leaf. Its warmth pulsed stronger now, almost buzzing. She held it out towards Eliana, who regarded it with wide, shimmering eyes. "This leaf, it was given to me by the spirit of the grove. It carries a spark of ancient magic, perhaps. As Elara extended her hand, the leaf seemed to vibrate. A tiny bead of dew, like a condensed tear, appeared on its surface, glowing with a soft, silver light. It was not a tear of sorrow, but of pure, distilled magic. Eliana, drawn by an instinct she couldn't resist, slowly lifted a translucent hand and touched the glowing drop. The moment her finger brushed it, a ripple of silver light emanated from the leaf, flowing into the sprite, and then, from the sprite, into the tendril of the willow. The effect was immediate, though subtle. A faint shimmer, like a sigh of relief, passed through the weeping willow. One tiny, dull tendril, the one Eliana had been perched upon, began to glow, its silvery threads regaining a fraction of their lost brilliance. Eliana herself straightened slightly, a tiny spark of light returning to her eyes. "A spark," she whispered, her voice stronger, though still fragile. "A true spark. It is not enough to heal the whole, listener, but it is enough to show you the way forward, the heart of the silence. It lies beyond the whispering falls. The way is shrouded now, but this spark, it will guide you." She pointed a delicate, shimmering finger towards a dense thicket of thorny bushes, where the whispers were now coalescing into a more distinct hum. "The falls. They are hidden by the veil of oblivion. Only true purpose, guided by a true heart, can part it. And the leaf, it is a key." With renewed determination, Elara nodded. "Thank you, Eliana. I will find the source." Leaving the clearing, Elara plunged into the thicket Eliana had indicated. The thorns were long and sharp, reaching out like grasping fingers, but the whispers guided her, showing her the narrowest gaps, the safest passages. The silvery leaf, still glowing faintly in her hand, seemed to repel the thorns, causing them to retract slightly as she approached. The density of the foliage gave way to a sudden dramatic change in the landscape. The ground sloped sharply downwards, and the air grew cool and damp, filled with the scent of mist and wet stone. Ahead, Elara heard it, a soft, persistent rumble, growing steadily louder. The whispering falls. But when she peered through a final curtain of ancient vines, she saw no waterfall. Instead, there was a shimmering, translucent wall of what looked like solidified mist, stretching from the forest floor to the unseen canopy above. It pulsed with a faint internal light, shifting between shades of pearl and indigo. This must be the veil of oblivion. It wasn't merely obscuring the falls. It felt as though it was actively erasing them from memory, from existence. A strange lethargy tried to creep into Elara's mind, a subtle urge to turn back, to forget her quest. "No, do not forget. The memory holds the magic," the whispers urged, their song a vibrant counterpoint to the veil's somnolent pull. Elara clutched the silvery leaf tighter. It flared with a sudden burst of light, brighter than before, pushing back against the veil's influence. She remembered Eliana's words, "The leaf, it is a key. And only true purpose, guided by a true heart, can part it." Taking another deep breath, Elara stepped forward, placing her palm flat against the shimmering surface of the veil. It felt cool and yielding, like touching liquid moonlight. As her hand pressed against it, the silvery leaf in her palm pulsed rhythmically, its light intensifying, spreading across the surface of the veil where her hand touched. The whispers rose to a crescendo around her, a chorus of encouragement. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the veil began to part. It didn't tear or dissolve. Rather, it seemed to flow around her, creating an opening just wide enough for her to step through. It was like walking through a dream, the shimmering mist parting to reveal a breathtaking sight beyond. The whispering falls were unlike any waterfall Elara had ever imagined. They didn't crash down into a turbulent pool. Instead, they cascaded from an immense height, not as water, but as pure, liquid sound. Shimmering ribbons of light and color, they poured from a cavernous opening high in a cliff face, each strand a distinct melodious hum, a visual manifestation of sound. The air vibrated with a symphony of ethereal music, the whispers she had heard all along, made manifest. They flowed down into a crystal-clear river that wound its way through a valley beyond, glittering with countless tiny magical fish. But something was wrong. Though beautiful, the flow was thin, almost reedy, especially compared to the immense opening from which it originated. Many of the vibrant ribbons were dull, faded to gray, and some had vanished entirely, leaving silent gaps in the waterfall's song. The river below, while clear, seemed sluggish, its banks edged with listless pale flora. This was the source, or at least a major conduit, of the Whisperwood's magic. And it was dwindling. As Elara stepped fully into the valley of the Whispering Falls, a figure emerged from the shifting, luminous currents of the waterfall itself. It solidified before her, a being of pure light and sound, taller than any tree, yet utterly graceful. Its form was humanoid, but its skin shimmered with all the colors of the falls, and its eyes glowed with an ancient knowing light. Its voice, when it spoke, was like the combined melody of 1,000 flutes and harps, resonating deep within Elara's chest. "Welcome, listener," it boomed, yet gently, like a lullaby woven with thunder. "I am Arian, guardian of the Whispering Falls. For countless ages, I have watched over this fount of magic, ensuring its song continues to flow, nurturing the heart of the Whisperwood." Arian's gaze swept over Elara, resting for a long moment on the silvery leaf in her hand. "You bear the mark of the grove spirit, and the echo of its ancient purpose. You have felt the dwindling of the song, the growing silence. Tell me, listener, what brings you to these sacred falls?" Elara, though awed, found her voice. "Arian, I have come because the magic is fading. The weeping willow sickens, the whispers weaken. Eliana, the heart's tear sprite, told me to seek the source of the silence here. What ails the falls?" A deep sigh, like the rustle of all the leaves in the forest, emanated from Arian. "The source is not within the falls themselves, listener, but deeper, at the very root of the Whisperwood's being. The falls are but a reflection. The true wellspring of magic, the Eldoria's heartstone, lies beneath the roots of the elder tree, the oldest and wisest tree in all the realms. For generations beyond count, the heartstone has pulsed with life, sending its magic through the roots, up into the trees." Arian gestured towards the cliff face from which the falls emerged. "But now, something chokes the roots, a blight, not of disease, but of stillness. It drains the heartstone's energy, silencing its song, and therefore silencing the falls. The elder tree itself suffers, its ancient branches growing brittle, its leaves falling prematurely." "A blight of stillness?" Elara echoed, picturing something cold and inert. "What is it?" "It is a shadow of forgetfulness," Arian explained, his voice taking on a somber tone. "A creature of pure apathy, born from the neglect and disregard of the mortal realms. It feeds not on life, but on the absence of it. It thrives in silence, in the unremembered, in the forgotten. It has woven itself into the roots of the elder tree, slowly stifling the flow of magic. It cannot be fought with strength, for it has no form to strike. It cannot be reasoned with, for it has no—" Elara felt a chill despite the warmth of the falls. A creature of apathy. How could one fight something so intangible? "The elder tree, where is it?" she asked. Arian extended a luminous arm, pointing past the falls, deeper into the valley. "Follow the river of song. It will lead you to a winding gorge, where the light itself seems to dim. There, you will find the elder tree, shrouded by the blight. But to reach its heart, to touch the heartstone, you must first pass through the labyrinth of whispers, a network of roots and ancient stones that guard the elder tree's deepest secrets. And to navigate the labyrinth, you must listen not just with Orars, but with Art, and speak the Forgotia, but with her heart." He looked at the silvery leaf again. "That leaf, it is from the elder tree itself, a seed of remembrance. It holds the echoes of its earliest songs, its deepest memories. It will be your guide through the labyrinth, but only if you learn to interpret its song. For the labyrinth is a test of connection, a challenge to reawaken the ancient memories it holds." "The forgotten verses," Elara murmured, thinking of the whispers. "Yes, the whispers are fragments of these verses, scattered through the forest. They resonate with the heartstone's true song. You must piece them together, find the melody, and sing it back to the labyrinth. Only then will the path reveal itself." Arian's form flickered, as if the light within him were dimming. "My strength, like the falls, is tied to the heartstone. I cannot guide you further. My vigil is to protect the falls, but only a listener, one who can hear the faintest echo of Eldoria's heart, can hope to mend the source. Go, Elara, the fate of the Whisperwood rests on your song." With a final shimmering bow, Arian dissolved back into the currents of the Whispering Falls, becoming one with their luminous flow. Leaving Elara alone in the valley, the thrumming music of the falls filling the air. Elara felt a renewed sense of purpose, though a daunting one. Fight apathy with memory and song. Navigate a labyrinth by listening with her heart. It was a task perfectly suited for a listener, yet one that felt immensely challenging. She turned and followed the river of song, its waters glittering with countless tiny luminous fish that pulsed with gentle light. The banks were lush, but the vibrancy seemed to diminish the further she walked from the falls. The plants grew paler, their colors muted, their leaves less lively. The air grew heavier, the constant thrum of the falls fading into a dull background hum, replaced by a growing sense of stillness. The valley narrowed, forming a winding gorge where the trees grew even more ancient and immense. Their branches, thick as whole forests, were draped with long gray moss that hung like shrouds. The light grew dim, filtered by the dense canopy, and an almost tangible gloom that seemed to emanate from the very earth. This was the domain of the Blight. The whispers, which had been a clear guiding melody at the falls, grew fragmented here, like distant, broken echoes. They struggled to reach her, wrestling with the oppressive silence. The silvery leaf in her pocket, however, remained warm, its faint glow a constant beacon. Finally, the gorge opened into another vast clearing, but this one was not vibrant like the weeping willows. It was somber, almost desolate. In the very center stood the elder tree. It was colossal, its trunk so wide that Elara felt like an ant beside it, its ancient roots, thick as serpents, snaking out across the clearing for hundreds of feet. But the tree was not magnificent in its current state. Its bark was cracked and dull, devoid of the vibrant life force she expected. Its few remaining leaves were a sickly yellow, and many branches were bare and brittle, skeletal against the dim sky. A profound silence hung around it, a heavy cloak that seemed to absorb all sound, all light, all magic. This was the Blight. It wasn't a physical creature, not a monster with teeth and claws. It was an absence, a negation. A cold, quiet dread settled in Elara's heart. It felt like standing in the heart of a forgotten dream. The whispers around her were almost gone here, reduced to the faintest of murmurs, struggling to pierce the silence. The roots, the heart, remember? The base of the elder tree was not solid ground, but a colossal, tangled maze of its own roots. They were not merely roots, but interwoven with ancient stones, some carved with faded symbols, others naturally formed into archways and tunnels. This was the labyrinth of whispers. The air within felt stagnant, heavy with the weight of forgotten time. The silvery leaf in her hand began to vibrate intensely, its glow brightening to a steady soft pulse. It felt like a small, beating heart. Elara realized this was it, her key to the labyrinth. She stepped into the maze, the massive roots closing around her, forming dark, echoing passages. The silence here was absolute, broken only by her own breathing and the soft hum of the leaf. The whispers were gone. They couldn't penetrate this far. But the leaf itself began to whisper. Not in words, but in sensations. It pulsed faster when she considered one path, slower when another. It grew warm when a memory of the tree was nearby, cool when she was on a path to nowhere. It was a direct connection to the elder tree's ancient consciousness, a guide woven from its own essence. Elara focused, letting her listener's gift extend beyond the auditory. She felt the vibrations of the leaf, interpreting its subtle shifts. She touched the ancient roots, feeling for echoes of life, for the faintest tremor of forgotten magic. She walked deeper, guided by the leaf's silent song. The paths twisted and turned, leading her through narrow tunnels formed by colossal roots into cavernous spaces where ancient stones, like forgotten altars, stood shrouded in darkness. Each turn presented a choice, and each choice was a test. At one point, she found herself at a crossroads. 4 paths stretched before her, identical in their shadowed gloom. The leaf pulsed gently, but offered no clear direction. "Listen not just with your ears but with your heart," Arian had said. "Speak the forgotten verses." Int. Elara closed her eyes, clutching the leaf. She cleared her mind, letting go of her fear, her uncertainty. She focused on the feeling of the leaf, on the deep, enduring love she had for the Whisperwood, for its magic, for its life. She opened her heart, truly listening. And then, she heard it. Not with her ears, but with an inner sense. A faint, almost imperceptible vibration. A memory of a sound. A fragment of a melody. A single, pure note, resonating from the path directly ahead. It was the whisper of a long-forgotten stream, the soft sigh of ancient leaves, a tiny piece of the elder tree's own song, preserved within the very fabric of the root. Elara took a hesitant step down that path. As she did, the leaf in her hand warmed considerably, and the faint inner melody grew a little stronger. She was on the right track. She continued, following these subtle internal whispers, these echoes of the elder tree's memories. She passed by roots that seemed to hum with the phantom buzzing of long-vanished bees, and stones that pulsed with the silent laughter of sprites who had played there eons ago. Each time she made the right choice, a tiny spark of light, like a firefly, would wink into existence ahead, guiding her on. The deeper she went, the more profound the memories became. She felt the vastness of the elder tree's life, stretching back through ages, witnessing the birth and growth of the Whisperwood. She felt its joy when the first spring rains fell, its quiet wisdom as generations of creatures sought shelter beneath its branches, its sorrow as ancient forests were forgotten, and magic began its slow retreat. She was not just walking through roots, she was walking through time, through the very consciousness of the elder tree. The air grew thicker, heavier with the blight's oppressive stillness, yet within Elara, a counterforce was growing. Her connection to the elder tree, facilitated by the leaf, was strengthening. She was not just listening to whispers anymore, she was beginning to remember them, to feel them, to embody them. Finally, after what felt like hours, or perhaps days, she reached the heart of the labyrinth. The passage opened into a vast, circular chamber, entirely enclosed by roots and ancient rock. In the very center, nestled amongst the colossal, gnarled roots, was a pulsating orb of pure, luminous energy. The Heartstone. It was magnificent, shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, emanating a soft, powerful hum that vibrated through the very stones of the chamber. This was the true wellspring of Eldoria's magic, the source of all the whispers, the lifeblood of the Whisperwood. But it was dim. Far too dim. A hazy, grayish film, like a thin layer of ash, clung to its surface, muting its brilliance, dampening its song. This was the blight, the shadow of forgetfulness, actively smothering the Heartstone's light. It wasn't a physical entity to fight, but a pervasive, insidious presence, a chill that seeped into the very essence of magic. Elara approached the Heartstone, her heart pounding. The silvery leaf in her hand was now glowing with an intense, steady light, radiating warmth. It was vibrating so strongly it felt alive, singing a silent song of ancient power. She reached out a hesitant hand towards the Heartstone. The blight recoiled slightly from the pure light of the leaf, revealing more of the Heartstone's dimmed glow. What could she do? How could she fight apathy? How could she rekindle a song that was being actively stifled? Arian's words echoed, "It can only be countered with what it lacks, memory, wonder, and the living song of magic." The leaf was memory. Her journey was wonder. But the song. Elara closed her eyes again, holding the leaf against her chest. She focused on everything she had experienced, everything she had felt. The gentle guidance of the whispers, the profound sorrow of the weeping willow and Aliana, the breathtaking beauty of the whispering falls, the ancient wisdom of Arian, the journey through the elder tree's memories. All of it was a song, a tapestry of life and magic and remembrance. She opened her mouth and a sound emerged. It wasn't a planned melody, not a practiced tune. It was an intuitive, heartfelt sound, a pure, wordless note that resonated with the hum of the leaf, with the faint pulse of the Heartstone, with the deepest, most ancient whispers she had ever heard. It was her song, a listener's song, woven from the magic of Eldoria itself. As her voice rose, pure and clear in the silent chamber, the silvery leaf flared, releasing a shower of tiny, sparkling motes of light that danced in the air. They were fragments of ancient memory, of forgotten joy, of rekindled wonder. They swirled around the Heartstone, and as they touched the gray film of the blight, The film began to recede, crumbling away like dust, revealing the Heartstone's true, vibrant colors beneath. The Heartstone, freed from its suffocating shroud, pulsed with renewed vigor. Its hum grew stronger, a deep, resonant chord that filled the chamber, vibrating through Elara's bones, through the very roots of the elder tree, and out into the vastness of the Whisperwood. The magic was returning. But the blight, though receding from the Heartstone's immediate surface, was not defeated. It merely pulled back into the surrounding roots, a shadowy, quiescent threat, waiting to reassert its hold. The Heartstone was brighter, but not yet fully vibrant. The elder tree was still ailing. The song was rekindled, but not yet fully restored. Elara knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning. She had found the source. She had started the song, but the Whisperwood still needed more. It needed continuous song, continuous memory, continuous wonder to truly drive back the blight of forgetfulness. She looked at the radiant Heartstone, then at the silvery leaf in her hand, now glowing with a steady, powerful light. The whispers were returning to her mind, clearer and stronger than ever, full of gratitude and renewed hope. The song has begun, listener, but the symphony awaits. Elara knew her journey was far from over. She had brought a spark, but the true flame needed tending. The Whisperwood needed a healer, a protector, a voice to remind it of its own magic, and she, Elara, the listener, had found her true calling. She had found the Heartstone, and in doing so, had found the heart of her own purpose. The next step, she realized, was not to leave, but to learn how to keep the song alive, how to truly mend the ancient, magical heart of Eldoria. The Heartstone pulsed, a soft emerald light radiating from its depths, illuminating the ancient chamber in a gentle, rhythmic glow. Elara knelt before it, her fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface. It hummed beneath her touch, a note so profound and ancient that it vibrated not just in her ears, but deep within her bones, resonating with the very spark she carried. This was the heart of Eldoria, ailing but not broken, merely muted, awaiting a hand to rekindle its song. "You have found it, listener," a voice whispered, not from the stone, but from the shadows of the chamber. It was like dry leaves rustling, like moss breathing, ancient and soft. Elara turned, her heart thrumming. From behind a veil of shimmering, moss-draped roots, a figure emerged. She was tall and slender, her skin the color of rich earth, her hair a cascade of living vines adorned with tiny, glowing bioluminescent flowers. Her eyes, deep pools of emerald, held the wisdom of countless seasons. This was no ordinary forest spirit. This was a dryad, one of the eldest. "Lyra," Elara breathed, recognizing the name whispered in the wind songs of the Whisperwood. Lyra's a legend, thought to be long dormant, bound to the deepest roots of the forest. Lyra smiled, a slow, gentle unfolding of ancient kindness. "I have slept for centuries, my dear. The Heartstone's fading pulse lulled me into a slumber from which I thought I might never wake. But your spark, Elara, your song, it stirred me." She gestured to the Heartstone. "Its ailment is not a wound, but a silence. The grand symphony of Eldoria has lost its instruments, its players, its conductor. The Heartstone, in its wisdom, chose to dim its light rather than sing a broken tune." "But how do I mend it?" Elara asked, her voice hushed. "I can hear the discord, but the harmony, it feels so vast." "The Heartstone is the conductor, but you, Elara, are the listener, the one who can hear the individual notes, the lost melodies, and weave them back together," Lyra explained, her voice gaining a gentle strength. "Your purpose is to remind Eldoria of its own magic, to reawaken the connections that have withered over time. The discord you heard is not a single entity, but the sum of all the forgotten songs, the broken pacts, the misdirected intentions across the land." Lyra led Elara deeper into the chamber, where ancient murals glowed faintly on the walls, depicting intricate patterns of light connecting different parts of Eldoria. The Heartstone draws its vitality from the harmonious flow of magic between all the elemental forces and sentient beings of Eldoria. When one thread weakens, a tapestry frays. When many threads break, the entire pattern suffers. We must reweave them. Elara's training began immediately, beneath the gentle tutelage of Lyra and the watchful, pulsing glow of the Heartstone. She learned to deepen her listening, not just to the surface sounds, but to the whispers beneath the earth, the currents within the water, the vibrations in the air, and the warmth in the light. Lyra taught her ancient chants and gestures not to command magic, but to invite it, to coax it into remembrance. Elara spent weeks simply sitting beside the hearthstone, meditating. She learned to channel her own vibrant spark, the pure, unblemished magic she carried, into the hearthstone, feeling it respond with a gentle warmth. She learned to distinguish the subtle differences in the hearthstone's pulse, a faint tremor when a distant stream dwindled, a flicker when an ancient tree felt lonely, a sigh when a creature lost its way. Her first tasks were small, focused on the immediate vicinity of the Whisperwood. Lyra guided her to a patch of ancient moss that had begun to gray and recede. Elara knelt, listening. She heard a faint, sorrowful hum, a memory of abundant water. She placed her hands on the moss, closed her eyes, and sang a low, resonant note, a melody Lyra had taught her, one that spoke of flowing water and gentle rain. As she sang, she channeled her spark, feeling the moss slowly deepen in color, its softness returning. Tiny dewdrop-like lights sparkled on its surface. She helped a family of whisper wrens whose songs had grown reedy and thin, their vibrant plumage dulling. Elara listened to their tiny, almost inaudible heartbeats, felt their fear and confusion. She hummed a melody of courage and joy, picturing their feathers bright, their songs soaring. Slowly, tentatively, the wrens joined her, their voices gaining strength, their feathers shimmering with renewed iridescence. These small victories, while fulfilling, also revealed the vastness of the problem. The discord was like a creeping shadow, subtle yet pervasive. Elara saw patches of unnaturally silent earth, streams that flowed sluggishly with an almost imperceptible dullness, and ancient trees whose leaves bore a faint gray cast, even in the height of summer. This wasn't a sudden blight. It was a slow, magical erosion, a forgetfulness seeping into the very fabric of Eldoria. The hearthstone needs more than just your spark, Elara, Lyra explained one evening, as the emerald glow deepened around them. It needs the echoes of all the ancient songs, the reaffirmation of all the forgotten connections. The discord is strongest where the connections are weakest. To fully reawaken Eldoria, you must re-establish the ancient pacts, reharmonize the elemental forces across the land. Lyra unrolled an ancient map, woven from luminous spider silk and embedded with tiny glowing crystals. It depicted Eldoria, not as landmasses, but as a living organism, crisscrossed by veins of light, ley lines of magic. 4 prominent points on the map pulsed faintly. Wayne sunken peaks, home to the Rootkin dwarves, masters of earth and stone. Their ancient mining practices, though not malicious, had inadvertently disrupted the earth magic ley lines. White of Whispering Falls, where the elusive river sprites, the Undine, guarded the sacred springs. Their ancient rituals had fallen out of practice, leading to stagnation. Clouded Spires, the airy domain of the sky-feathered sylphs, who wove magic from wind and sound. Their grand aerial instruments, vital for air currents and communication, had fallen silent. Yishi in Maglade, Glade, a hidden forest, where the magnificent sun moths performed their vital light-giving dance. Their ancestral trees, the source of their luminescence, were dimming. You must journey to each of these places, Elara, Lyra said, her eyes fixed on the map. Listen to their songs, understand their needs, and help them remember their harmony with the hearthstone, and with each other. It will not be easy. Suspicion and apathy have settled deep in some hearts. Elara felt a thrill of both fear and exhilaration. This was it. This was the true calling. She would become the song weaver, the harmonizer. Her first destination was the Yizonkan Peaks, a range of mountains far to the west of the Whisperwood. Lyra gifted Elara a staff, carved from a petrified lightning-struck oak gari. It hummed with a low, steady energy, and bore a single luminous crystal at its tip. It will guide you, Elara, and amplify your listening, Lyra instructed. Remember, true strength lies not in force, but in understanding. The journey was arduous. The Whisperwood gradually gave way to rolling hills, then to craggy, rising terrain. The air grew thinner, the whispers of the wind sharper. As she neared the sunken peaks, Elara noticed the subtle signs of discord. The rock formation seemed sharper, more angular, less smoothed by time and magic. The mountain goats moved with a jerky, almost mechanical gait, their usual agility dulled. The very ground felt agitated, as if something beneath it was struggling. The Rootkin dwarves, famed for their deep minds and intricate stonecraft, were reclusive. Their settlements were carved deep into the mountainsides, their entrances cleverly disguised. Elara found the main entrance to their city, Stonehaven, hidden behind a waterfall that shimmered with an unhealthy greenish tint. "Halt!" came a gruff voice from the shadows of the cave mouth. Two dwarven guards, clad in gleaming mithril armor and wielding heavy runic axes, stepped forward. Their faces were weathered, their beards braided with silver and quartz, but their eyes held a deep weariness. "I am Elara, the listener, from the Whisperwood," Elara announced, holding up her staff, its crystal glowing softly. "I come seeking the wisdom of the Rootkin, to speak of the Heartstone and the imbalance in the earth." The dwarves exchanged skeptical glances. "The Heartstone is a myth of the surface dwellers," one grumbled. "And the earth is our domain. We know its rhythms." "Do you?" Elara asked gently, gesturing to the greenish waterfall. "The waters here used to shimmer with pure light, did they not? And the mountain itself, do you not feel its restlessness?" The guards looked at the waterfall, then at each other. They had noticed the change, but attributed it to common geological shifts. After much deliberation and a tense standoff, they led Elara through the winding tunnels of Stonehaven. The dwarven city was a marvel of engineering and artistry. Vast caverns illuminated by glowing crystals, intricate carvings depicting their history, and forges roaring with controlled fire. But Elara also felt the discord here. The air, though warm, felt heavy, almost oppressive. The crystals, while beautiful, pulsed with an uneven, slightly frantic light. The dwarves themselves, though industrious, moved with a sense of grim determination, their usual hearty songs replaced by the clang of hammers and the rumble of carts. She was brought before King Borin, an ancient dwarf with a beard that reached his knees and eyes like chips of flint. He sat on a throne carved from obsidian, surrounded by his council. "You claim the Heartstone is ailing, and that we are to blame for the earth's unrest." King Borin boomed, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Our mines provide the metals that build Eldoria. Our tunnels reach deeper than any other. We are the stewards of the stone." "Indeed, your majesty," Elara replied, bowing respectfully. "But even the most diligent steward can sometimes miss the subtle shifts. Your deep mining, while providing great bounty, has inadvertently severed some of the ancient earth magic ley lines that crisscross Eldoria. These lines are like the veins in your own body, carrying lifeblood. When they are cut, the flow of magic falters, and the earth itself grows restless, unable to breathe." She demonstrated, placing her staff on the stone floor. Its crystal pulsed, then a faint, shimmering line of light traced itself across the floor, revealing a severed ley line beneath the throne. The dwarves gasped. They had always dismissed such surface magic as fanciful. "We heard the rumblings." "Yes," King Borin admitted, stroking his beard. "We thought it was merely the mountain settling, or new veins opening. What is your solution, listener?" Elara spent days studying the dwarven maps, listening to the mountain itself with her staff. She discovered that their deepest shafts had indeed intersected several major ley lines, causing a magical hemorrhage. The discord here manifested as a dull, grinding friction, a subtle pressure on the Heartstone. She proposed a solution, not to abandon their mining, but to create new winding tunnels along the path of the severed ley lines, lined with special resonating crystals that would act as magical conduits, re-establishing the flow. It would be a monumental engineering feat, but one that would allow them to continue their work in harmony with the mountain. It took much persuasion, but Elara's unwavering conviction, combined with the visible evidence of her staff and the increasing restlessness of the mountain, finally won them over. The Rootkin, once skeptical, put their immense skill to the task. Elara stayed for weeks, guiding them, teaching them how to listen to the stone's energy with their own hands. As the new conduits were built and charged with the dwarves' own earth magic, Elara felt the Heartstone's pulse strengthen, a deep, resonant hum flowing through the mountain. The greenish tint faded from the waterfall, replaced by a pure shimmering light. The mountain goats once again leaped with effortless grace. The Rootkin's work songs, once grim, now resonated with renewed joy. Before she left, King Borin gifted her a small, perfectly carved stone amulet, that pulsed with a steady, grounding energy. "For the listener," he said, "who taught us to listen deeper." Her next destination was the Yi Whispering Falls, a series of cascading waterfalls and hidden grottos nestled deep within a lush valley, far to the south. The journey took her through blossoming meadows and ancient forests, where the air grew progressively heavier and sweeter. But even here, the discord made itself known. The streams, though clear, lacked the vibrant sparkle she remembered from Lyra's tales. The water lilies were beautiful, but their scent was faint. The river sprites, the Undine, were notoriously shy, their forms shimmering like reflections in the water. Elara approached the main falls, a breathtaking cascade that tumbled into a deep, turquoise pool. She sat by the edge, placing the Rootkin amulet on the ground, and began to hum a melody of flowing water, of ancient springs and life-giving rain. Slowly, figures began to emerge from the spray and the reflections. They were beings of pure water, their forms fluid and translucent, their eyes like polished river stones. They watched her with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Their leader, a regal Undine named Coralia, her form woven with intricate patterns of current and foam, finally spoke, her voice like the gentle rush of a stream. "Surface dweller," Coralia said, her voice echoing. "You sing our forgotten songs. Why do you seek us?" "I seek to mend the heartstone of Eldoria," Elara replied, "and to do so, I must help you remember your own sacred purpose." Coralia sighed, a sound like a distant ripple. "We know. Our sacred springs, the wellsprings of our power, grow stagnant. Our ancestral rituals, meant to replenish them, have been forgotten over the ages. The discord, it mutes the memory, even for us." Elara listened deeply, not just to Coralia's words, but to the faint, sorrowful murmur of the water itself. The discord here was a lingering apathy, a sense of resignation that slowly dulled the vibrant magic of the springs. The Undine had simply stopped believing in the power of their own traditions. Elara learned that the Undina's rituals involved a complex dance and song performed beneath the full moon, channeling the moon's ethereal light into the sacred springs, invigorating them with life-giving energy. But the last elder who knew the full intricacies of the dance had passed centuries ago, and the younger generations had not learned it. Using her unique gift, Elara listened to the echoes of the past, to the faint, shimmering memories held within the water itself. She saw glimpses of the dance, heard fragments of the song. Over several nights she worked with Coralia and the other Undine, patiently piecing together the movements, the rhythms, the forgotten words. It was a delicate task, like reweaving a tapestry of light and liquid. Finally, under the brightest full moon Elara had ever seen, the Undine gathered around the sacred springs. Elara, guided by the Heartstone's strengthening pulse and the Rootkin amulet's grounding energy, stood with them. As the Undine began their dance, their forms flowing and intertwining, Elara lent her voice to their song, amplifying the ancient melody, filling in the missing notes with her own pure spark. The effect was breathtaking. As the dance reached its crescendo, the sacred springs began to glow with an inner luminescence, pulsing with vibrant cerulean light. The water lilies burst into full bloom, their fragrance filling the air. The Whispering Falls thundered with renewed vigor, their spray shimmering with rainbows. Elara felt the Heartstone's pulse grow stronger still, a deep, cleansing current, flowing through Eldoria. Coralia, her form radiant, embraced Elara with a shimmering hug. "You have taught us to remember ourselves, listener," she said. "The water sings with gratitude." She gifted Elara a single, perfectly smooth riverstone, which hummed with the gentle cleansing energy of the falls. From the lush valley, Elara journeyed north, towards the eye-clouded Spires, a jagged range of mountains that pierced the sky, perpetually wreathed in swirling mists and clouds. The air grew crisp and cool, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. Here, the discord manifested as an eerie silence, a lack of movement in the air that felt unnatural. The clouds hung heavy, refusing to disperse, and the wind, when it blew, was a mournful sigh rather than a vibrant song. The sky-feathered sylphs were beings of air and light, their bodies delicate, their wings gossamer and iridescent. They lived in intricate nests woven into the highest spires, their civilization based on aerial navigation and communication through sound. Elara found their main settlement, a breathtaking city of woven cloud stuff and crystalline towers, almost completely enshrouded in thick gray mist. She used her staff to send a resonant hum into the air, a seeking note that spoke of peace and openness. After a moment, a group of sylphs, their wings barely visible in the gloom, descended. Their faces, usually alight with curiosity and joy, were clouded with melancholy. Their leader, a wise sylph named Zephyr, his wings iridescent with the colors of a fading sunset, greeted her with a solemn nod. "We have heard your seeking song, listener from the surface," Zephyr said, his voice a soft chime. "But what can you find in this silence? Our spires are cloaked, our songs unheard. The sky itself seems to have forgotten us." "The Heartstone remembers you, Zephyr," Elara replied, gazing up at the muted mist-shrouded spires. "And it feels your silence. The discord here is a forgotten voice, a broken connection to the very air you breathe. Your ancient wind chimes, those grand instruments that once guided the currents and carried your messages across Eldoria, have fallen silent." Zephyr looked down, his wings drooping. "Indeed, the grand chimes of Eridor, their crystalline components shattered during a great storm many centuries ago, and we have never been able to perfectly reforge them. Without their harmony, the air currents grow sluggish, the mists cling, and our communication with the wider world has ceased. We have lost our way." Elara listened to the air itself. She felt the heavy, stagnant energy, the absence of the vibrant currents that should have flowed through the peaks. The discord here was a sense of isolation, a disconnection that left the sylphs feeling adrift. She understood now that the wind chimes weren't just instruments, they were conduits, weaving the very fabric of the sky magic. The shattered fragments of the grand chimes were kept in a sacred vault, their dulled crystals reflecting no light. Elara, using the earth magic amulet and the waterstone for balance, began to listen to the fragments. She heard the memory of their original song, a complex symphony of wind and light. The sylphs, with their innate understanding of air and crystal, watched with growing hope. She realized the problem wasn't merely the physical breakage, but the forgetting of the resonant frequency, the true note each crystal needed to sing. Using her staff, Elara found the faint echoes of those original notes within the fragments. Then, with the sylph's guidance, she began to sing. Her voice, amplified by the staff, resonated with the crystals. As she sang, the sylphs, in a delicate, intricate dance, wove new strands of shimmering cloud stuff around the fragments, binding them together, coaxing them to remember their form. It was a slow, painstaking process. Each crystal had its own unique tone, its own story. As Elara brought each fragment to life, she could feel the air around them stir, the mists thin. Finally, the last crystal was in place, and the grand chimes of Eridor hung once more, complete. Elara struck the central chime with her staff, and a pure resonating note rang out, soaring through the spires. Immediately the heavy mists began to swirl, then dissipate, revealing the dazzling crystalline city bathed in sunlight. The wind, no longer mournful, swept through the chimes, playing a magnificent, joyous symphony that resonated across the peaks. Elara felt the Heartstone's pulse quicken, its song now intertwining with the vibrant music of the sky. Zephyr, his wings now blazing with renewed color, chimes of laughter in his voice, embraced her. "You have given us back our voice, listener. We are no longer lost in the clouds." He presented her with a delicate, iridescent feather, which shimmered with the energy of the wind, and carried the faint, joyful chime of the grand chimes. Her final journey took her to the Yinberglade, a hidden valley rumored to shimmer with perpetual twilight, where the magnificent sun moths held their sacred dance. This region was far to the east, bordering the desolate ash wastes, where the land was scorched and barren. As Elara neared the glade, the air grew warm, almost humid, carrying the scent of ancient wood and faint, sweet incense. But the discord here was chilling. The light, instead of being vibrant, felt muted, like old embers struggling to ignite. The very essence of warmth and life seemed to be draining away. The Ember Glade was a place of ethereal beauty, filled with colossal, ancient trees whose bark glowed with a soft internal light. These were the ancestral trees, the source of the sun moth's luminescence and their life. But as Elara walked deeper, she saw that many of these trees were dimming, their internal light flickering, their leaves curling. The sun moths themselves, usually a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and joyous light, fluttered listlessly, their wings dull, their bioluminescence fading. She found their elder, a venerable sun moth named Solara, her wings once magnificent, now barely shimmering. Solara rested on a dimming ancestral tree, her antennae drooping. "Welcome, listener," Solara buzzed, her voice a faint, sorrowful hum. "We have seen your light approaching, a beacon in the growing gloom, but I fear even your spark may not be enough. Our ancestral trees, the heart of our very existence, are dying. Their light fades, and with it, ours." "The heartstone feels your fading light, Solara," Ilara said gently, her staff glowing with a sympathetic warmth. "The discord here is a loss of vital warmth, a draining of the essential life fire that nourishes Eldoria. Your ancestral trees are interconnected with an ancient underground river of elemental fire, a wellspring of vital energy. That connection is weakening." Solara explained that the sun moth's sacred dance was not just a display, but a ritualistic channeling of their collective bioluminescence, amplified by the ancestral trees, to draw energy from this elemental fire river, maintaining the glade's warmth and light. But the river itself had receded, its energy growing distant. They didn't know why. Ilara listened to the trees, to the earth beneath them. She heard a faint, distressed crackling, like a fire struggling to breathe. The discord was a slow, magical dehydration, a gradual severing of the trees from their fundamental energy source. The ash wastes, it turned out, were not naturally barren. They were a consequence of the elemental fire river being siphoned or redirected, leaving the surface parched and the glade's connection tenuous. Guided by her staff and the rootkin amulet, Ilara discovered that ancient, forgotten volcanic vents, far beneath the glade, had become clogged with solidified ash and earth, disrupting the flow of the elemental fire river. The sun moths, being creatures of light and air, had no way to clear these blockages. With Solara's help, Ilara gathered the strongest sun moths. She taught them to channel their fading bioluminescence, not just into a dance but into a focused beam of pure, concentrated light. Then, Ilara, using her staff and the wisdom of the Heartstone's pulse, directed this collective light down into the earth, targeting the clogged vents. It was a battle of wills, of light against ancient darkness, warmth against cold stagnation. Ilara poured her own spark, her own unwavering belief, into the beam. Slowly, painstakingly, the ancient blockages began to crumble. A faint tremor ran through the glade, then a deep, resonant rumble. A surge of warmth radiated from the earth, and the ancestral trees, one by one, began to glow with renewed vigor, their internal light brightening, their leaves unfurling. The sun moths, feeling the surge of energy, burst into a dazzling, spontaneous dance, their wings shimmering with every color imaginable, illuminating the glade, in a breathtaking display of pure, vibrant light. Ilara felt the Heartstone's pulse surge, a wave of profound warmth and life flowing through her. The discord of fading light was replaced by a magnificent, blazing harmony. Solara, her wings now radiating with an ethereal glow, hovered before Ilara. "You have rekindled our ancient fire, listener. You have brought back the dawn to our glade." She gifted Ilara a tiny, luminous seed, pulsing with the vibrant, life-giving light of the ancestral trees. "Plant this when Eldoria is truly whole, Ilara. It will bear the light of our gratitude." With the gifts of earth, water, air, and light now woven into her being and her staff, Ilara returned to the Whisperwood, to the Heartstone chamber. She was weary, but exhilarated, her spirit brimming with the harmonies she had collected. Lyra awaited her, her emerald eyes shining with pride. "You have done well, Ilara," Lyra whispered, her voice like the rustling of all the leaves in the forest. "You have gathered the instruments, and their players remember their notes. Now, it is time for the grand symphony." Ilara stood before the Heartstone, which pulsed with a stronger, more vibrant light than when she had left. But it was not yet its full, radiant self. It still yearned for the complete, unified song of Eldoria. She placed her staff on the Heartstone, then laid the Rootkin amulet, the Undine Riverstone, the Sylph Feather, and the Sun Moth seed around its base. Each artifact hummed with its unique energy, creating a ring of shimmering magic. Ilara closed her eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the combined energies of Eldoria flowing through her. Then, she began to sing. Her voice, usually soft, now resonated with the strength of the mountains, the clarity of the rivers, the freedom of the winds, and the warmth of the sun. It was not a song she had learned, but a melody that flowed through her, born of all the harmonies she had gathered, all the discords she had healed. She sang of the deep, resonant hum of the earth, the rushing, cleansing melody of water, the soaring, whispering tune of the air, and the radiant, life-giving chorus of light. As she sang, the hearthstone began to glow, not just with emerald but with a kaleidoscope of colors, the deep browns and silvers of the earth, the shimmering blues and turquoises of water, the iridescent whites and grays of the sky, and the fiery oranges and golds of light. The ancient murals on the chamber walls flared to life, the lines of light connecting all parts of Eldoria, now pulsing with vibrant energy. But the discord was not entirely vanquished. As Ilara's song reached its crescendo, a wave of dissonance swept through the chamber, a chaotic cacophony of scraping sounds, jarring shrieks and muffled thuds. It was the last, desperate gasp of the imbalance, attempting to shatter the nascent harmony. The lights on the murals flickered, the hearthstone's glow wavered. Ilara faltered for a moment, the sheer weight of the discord threatening to overwhelm her. No, she thought, remembering Lyra's words, true strength lies not in force, but in understanding. She steadied herself, deepened her listening. She didn't fight the discord. She heard it. She heard the fear, the isolation, the forgotten grief behind the noise. And then within the chaos, she found the true notes, the underlying melodies that had been twisted and muted. With newfound resolve, Ilara wove these true notes into her song, not silencing the discord, but enveloping it, transforming it. She sang of acceptance, of forgiveness. Her voice became a tapestry, intricate and strong, drawing the disparate threads of Eldoria into a single, magnificent, unified whole. The hearthstone pulsed, growing brighter, stronger, until it radiated a light so pure and vibrant that it filled the entire chamber, then streamed out into the Whisperwood, and beyond, spreading across all of Eldoria. The symphony awakened. It was not just sound, but sensation. The gentle hum of the earth beneath her feet, the refreshing kiss of the wind on her skin, the vital warmth of the sun, the cleansing flow of water. The Whisperwood burst into a riot of color and sound, its trees shimmering with new life, its creatures singing with boundless joy. Far across Eldoria, the Rootkin felt their mountains sing with ancient peace. The Undine saw their springs sparkle with renewed spirit, the sylphs soared on currents of pure, vibrant air, and the sun moths danced beneath ancestral trees that blazed with unimaginable light. Ilara stood before the fully awakened hearthstone, its light now a harmonious blend of all the colors of Eldoria, pulsing with a deep, resonant, continuous song. She had done it. She had found the true flame, and in doing so, had become more than just a listener. She was Ilara, the harmonizer, the songweaver of Eldoria. Lyra, her face alight with ancient joy, placed a hand on Ilara's shoulder. The hearthstone lives, Ilara, and so does the heart of Eldoria. Your purpose is fulfilled, and yet it has just begun. Ilara smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace and belonging. Her journey had not ended with finding the hearthstone, but with understanding that the hearthstone was not merely a stone, but the living, breathing soul of Eldoria, sustained by the harmony of all its parts. And she, Ilara, was now its guardian, its voice, its constant listener. She stepped out of the hearthstone chamber, into a Whisperwood more vibrant and alive than she could have ever imagined. The stars above shimmered, brighter than ever before, and the star she had followed on that first night, the one that had guided her to her true calling, now pulsed with a gentle, knowing light, a silent melody of gratitude and hope. She looked out at the renewed world, a silent promise on her lips. The magic of Eldoria was awake, and with her vigilance it would stay awake, singing its beautiful harmonious song for all the ages to come. And as the forest hummed its lullaby, Ilara knew, deep in her heart, that Eldoria was safe, and all was well. The symphony would play on, forevermore.